When a 737 captain collapses at 35,000 feet, panic fills the cabin. The crew desperately searches for anyone with flight experience. Then a quiet teenage girl from seat 9C stands up. Passengers laugh at her. But she knows something they don't. She's been training for this moment her entire life. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The morning sun shined bright over Denver International Airport. People rushed through the busy terminal with coffee cups and rolling suitcases. Flight announcements echoed from speakers overhead. It was a normal Tuesday morning, and nobody expected anything unusual to happen. At Gate B-17, passengers lined up to board Flight 428 to Boston. Among them stood a quiet 14-year-old girl named Maya Chen. She wore a blue jacket and carried a backpack covered with airplane stickers. Her dark hair was tied in a simple ponytail. She looked like any other teenager traveling alone. A gate agent noticed Maya and smiled. "Sweetie, are you flying by yourself today?" she asked in that special voice adults use when talking to children. "Yes, ma'am. I'm visiting my grandmother in Boston," Maya answered politely. The agent nodded slowly. "Okay, honey. We'll make sure the flight attendants watch you. Do you have snacks? Something to read?" "I'm fine. Thank you," Maya said. The agent pinned a bright yellow tag on Maya's jacket. "There you go. This shows everyone you're traveling alone. The crew will take good care of you, sweetie." Maya smiled and nodded. She was used to this treatment. Adults always saw her as just a child. Nobody knew what she was really capable of. As Maya walked down the jetway to the plane, other passengers hurried past her. Business people typed on their phones. Families pulled their tired children along. An elderly man moved slowly with his cane. Nobody paid attention to the young girl with the yellow tag. Inside the plane, Maya found her seat. It was 9C, an aisle seat in the middle of the cabin. She put her backpack under the seat in front of her and pulled out a thick book. She opened it and started reading with complete focus. A flight attendant named Sarah noticed Maya's tag and stopped. "Hi there. I'm Sarah. I'll check on you during the flight, okay? If you need anything, just press this button." She pointed to the call button above the seat. "Thank you," Maya said, barely looking up from her book. Sarah tried to see the book's title, but couldn't. She thought it was probably a school book or a teenage novel. But Maya was actually reading Advanced Flight Systems and Emergency Procedures. The old cover hid the real title. Her eyes moved quickly across the pages, understanding every technical word. A woman in her 40s sat down in the middle seat next to Maya. Her name was Jennifer. She looked at Maya with concern. "Hello, dear," Jennifer said warmly. "Are you traveling all by yourself?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied politely. "Oh my," Jennifer continued. "You're so brave. I would never let my daughter travel alone at your age. Are you going to see family?" "My grandmother in Boston," Maya confirmed with a small smile. She looked back at her book, hoping to continue reading. But Jennifer didn't notice. "That's nice, sweetie. What grade are you in?" "Ninth grade," Maya answered briefly. An older man sat down in the window seat. His name was Mr. Peterson. He was in his 70s, wearing a neat suit and glasses. He nodded kindly at Maya. She nodded back, grateful he didn't ask questions. More passengers kept boarding. Overhead bins slammed shut. A baby cried somewhere in the back. Flight attendants moved through the cabin, helping people find their seats and store their bags. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Miller sat in the left seat. He was 55 years old and had been flying for 30 years. He was experienced and confident. Next to him sat First Officer Lisa Martinez, who was 32 years old. She was skilled but less experienced than the captain. The two pilots worked together, checking their instruments and talking to ground control. "Flight 428, you are cleared for pushback," said the voice in their headsets. Captain Miller confirmed, and the plane slowly moved backward from the gate. In the cabin, Sarah walked down the aisle one more time before takeoff. She stopped at row 9 again. "Sweetie, you'll need to put that book away for takeoff. You can read it once we're in the air." Maya nodded and put the book in the seat pocket. She pulled out her phone and put in her earbuds. To anyone watching, she looked like a normal teenager listening to music or watching videos. But Maya wasn't doing that at all. She had opened a flight simulator app on her phone. It wasn't a game. It was a serious training program. Her fingers moved across the screen with practiced skill. She was practicing emergency procedures in a virtual cockpit. Jennifer glanced over and smiled. She thought Maya was just playing games or texting friends. Jennifer had no idea that Maya was practicing an engine failure scenario, thinking about approach speeds and emergency checklists like a trained pilot. The plane pushed back, turned, and started moving toward the runway. The familiar safety announcement played over the speakers. Flight attendants showed passengers how to use seat belts and oxygen masks. Maya watched carefully. She wasn't bored like most passengers. She really paid attention. She noted where the emergency exits were. She counted the rows between her seat and the nearest exit. She observed how the doors worked. Her training had taught her to always be aware and always be prepared. Mr. Peterson noticed her attention. He leaned over slightly. "First time flying?" he asked kindly. "No, sir," Maya responded. "I've flown many times. I just like to pay attention to the safety briefing." He chuckled warmly. "Smart girl. Most people don't bother anymore." The engines roared as Captain Miller pushed the throttles forward. The huge plane sped down the runway. At exactly the right moment, Miller pulled back on the controls and Flight 428 lifted smoothly into the morning sky. Maya closed her eyes, but not because she was scared. She was feeling every movement of the aircraft. In her mind, she noted the climb rate, the engine sounds, the angle of the plane going up. In her imagination, she was in the cockpit with her hands on the controls. Her father had taught her everything. Commander David Chen, United States Navy, retired. He had flown fighter jets off aircraft carriers. He had served in dangerous missions around the world. From the time Maya could walk, he had shared his love of flying with her. She remembered being 5 years old, sitting on his lap in their home flight simulator. Her tiny hands held the controls while his larger hands guided hers. "Feel that, baby," he would say. "That's the plane talking to you. Listen to it and you'll always know what to do." By age 7, she could do basic flying maneuvers. By 9, she was practicing emergency procedures. By 12, she had spent hundreds of hours in advanced flight simulators under her father's careful teaching. He taught her not just how to fly, but how to handle every possible emergency. Engine failures, electrical problems, fire, loss of cabin pressure, bad weather. He made her practice scenarios over and over until her responses became automatic. "You're too young to fly real planes yet," he would tell her. "But you're not too young to learn. Knowledge doesn't have an age limit. Maya, when the time comes, you'll be ready." 3 years ago, Commander Chen had died in a training accident. One moment he was preparing for a routine flight. The next moment he was gone. Maya's world collapsed. Her mother, lost in grief, didn't realize that Maya had continued her father's lessons on her own. She studied his manuals. She practiced on flight simulation programs. She watched thousands of hours of training videos. Flying kept her connected to her father. Every procedure she learned was a way of honoring his memory. Nobody knew. Not her mother, not her teachers, not her friends. To them, she was just a smart girl who liked science and got good grades. The depth of her aviation knowledge remained her secret. The plane reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. The seatbelt sign turned off with a ding. Passengers began moving around, getting comfortable, pulling out laptops and books. Sarah appeared with the beverage cart. "What would you like to drink, honey?" she asked Maya. "Orange juice, please," Maya said. Sarah handed her a small plastic cup with a napkin. Jennifer ordered tea and immediately tried to talk to Maya again. "So, do you play any sports?" "My daughter is on the soccer team." "I'm not really into sports," Maya responded politely. "I like science and math." "Oh, that's nice," Jennifer said in a tone that suggested she was trying to be encouraging. "You could be a teacher someday. It's good to be smart." Maya just nodded. She didn't bother explaining that her skills included understanding aircraft systems better than most adults. The flight continued peacefully. Passengers read, worked, and dozed. Outside the windows, the sky was bright blue with white clouds far below. The steady hum of the engines provided a constant background sound. In the cockpit, Captain Miller and First Officer Martinez maintained their routine. They had been flying together for 8 months and worked well as a team. Miller looked at weather reports for Boston while Martinez monitored the aircraft systems. "Looking good," Martinez said, scanning her instruments. "All systems normal. We should arrive on time." Miller nodded and reached for his coffee cup. But as he brought it to his lips, something changed in his face. He suddenly went very pale. The cup slipped from his fingers, splashing coffee across the control panel. "Captain?" Martinez looked over, concerned. Miller opened his mouth to answer, but no words came out. His left hand went to his chest, clutching it. His breathing became fast and shallow. "Robert." Martinez's voice rose with alarm. She reached over and grabbed his shoulder. Miller's eyes rolled back. His body slumped forward against his safety harness, unconscious. "Oh God," Martinez whispered. Her heart pounded. She pressed the call button for the flight attendants while trying to check Miller's pulse. Her hands shook as panic threatened to take over. Martinez was a good pilot, but she was newer and less experienced. The sudden loss of her captain at 35,000 feet with a plane full of passengers was her worst nightmare come true. The cockpit door opened. Sarah appeared, took one look at the unconscious captain, and her face went white. "What happened?" she gasped. "I don't know. He just collapsed. I think it's his heart. Get help. Get anyone with medical experience now." Martinez's voice was tight as she fought to stay focused. She needed to fly the plane, but she also needed help with Miller. Sarah rushed back into the cabin. Her professional calm was breaking. "Is anyone here a doctor?" she called out loudly. "We have a medical emergency. We need a doctor or nurse." Passengers' heads snapped up. Worried whispers spread through the cabin. People looked at each other with wide, frightened eyes. A man in row 18 raised his hand. "I'm a paramedic." He rushed forward and Sarah guided him into the cockpit. In the cockpit, the paramedic, whose name was Tom Davis, quickly checked Captain Miller. He felt his pulse, watched his breathing, looked at his color. "He's having a cardiac event," he said urgently. "Possibly a heart attack. I need to get him on the floor to monitor him properly." He looked at Martinez with worried eyes. "Can you help me move him?" Martinez was torn. She couldn't leave the controls. "I can't leave the pilot seat. Can you manage?" Tom and Sarah struggled to move Miller's unconscious body out of the captain's seat. It was difficult in the small cockpit space. They finally got him onto the floor behind the seats. Tom immediately began checking his vital signs more carefully. Martinez was now alone in the captain's seat. Her hands gripped the controls with white knuckles. Sweat formed on her forehead. She had flown this aircraft many times, but always with a captain beside her, always with backup. Now she was alone, responsible for 183 passengers and crew with a medical emergency happening right behind her. She pressed the radio button. Boston Center, Flight 428. We have an emergency. Captain is incapacitated. Medical emergency. First Officer Martinez now in command. Requesting priority handling and medical standing by in Boston. The response came back immediately, calm and professional. Flight 428, Roger. Understand Captain incapacitated. You have priority. Maintain current altitude. Medical will be standing by. Can you continue to Boston or do you need to divert? Martinez's mind raced. Boston was still over 90 minutes away. Diverting meant finding another airport, preparing for an approach she hadn't studied, dealing with unfamiliar territory. But continuing meant staying in command alone for that entire time. Flight 428, continuing to Boston, she decided. Better to stick with the plan and the airport she knew. Behind her, Tom worked on Miller. He's breathing, but his pulse is weak and irregular. I think he's had a major cardiac event. We need to get him to a hospital as quickly as possible. The reality hit Martinez hard. She wasn't just flying a plane anymore. A man's life depended on how quickly she could get them safely on the ground. But she couldn't rush. She couldn't make mistakes. She had to fly the approach perfectly. Her hands trembled slightly on the controls. She took deep breaths, trying to calm herself, trying to remember her training. But a voice in her head kept whispering doubts. What if I mess up? What if I can't do this alone? What if something else goes wrong? Sarah came out of the cockpit, her face pale. She gathered the other flight attendants and explained the situation in hushed tones. Then she took a deep breath and picked up the PA microphone. Her voice came over the speakers, trying to sound calm, but with an edge of barely controlled fear. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sarah, your lead flight attendant. We're experiencing a medical emergency with one of our pilots. The first officer is fully capable of landing the aircraft safely. But we need to ask if there is anyone on board with flight experience. Anyone who has pilot training or experience flying aircraft? If so, please press your call button immediately. The cabin erupted. Passengers looked at each other with wide, frightened eyes. Worried conversations broke out. People craned their necks, looking around to see if anyone would respond. "Oh my God," Jennifer said, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, what's happening? Are we going to crash?" Mr. Peterson put a steady hand on his armrest. "Stay calm. The first officer can handle this. We'll be fine." But Maya was already moving. Her heart pounded, but not with fear. With purpose. Everything her father had taught her, every hour she had spent preparing had led to this moment. She knew what she could do. She knew she could help. She stood up. Her small frame seemed almost fragile in the aisle. She took a deep breath. Then she spoke loudly and clearly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I can help. I have flight training." The cabin fell into shocked silence. Every head turned toward row 9. They saw a teenage girl, barely 5 feet tall, wearing a blue jacket and a yellow tag that said, "Unaccompanied minor," standing in the aisle with her hand raised. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared. Then the reactions began. A man in row 7 laughed. A harsh, disbelieving sound. "Are you kidding? This is not the time for jokes, kid." Jennifer grabbed Maya's arm. "Honey, sit down. The adults will handle this. You're scared, but this isn't helpful." "I'm not joking," Maya said firmly, pulling her arm free. Her voice was steady and mature, nothing like the quiet child she had been before. "I have extensive flight training. I can help. Sweetie, this is serious, another passenger said, his tone dismissive. Real pilots are needed, not kids who've played video games. But Mr. Peterson was looking at Maya with new understanding. He had seen how she watched the safety briefing. He had seen the focus in her eyes. Let her speak, he said quietly but firmly. Sarah pushed through the aisle, her expression torn between hope and disbelief. She looked at this young girl, this child she had been calling sweetie and honey all morning, and tried to understand what she was hearing. You can fly? Sarah asked, her voice uncertain. Like actually fly, not just video games. Yes, Maya said, meeting her eyes with unwavering confidence. My father was Commander David Chen, United States Navy. He trained me for years. I've logged over 700 hours on advanced flight simulators, including full cockpit procedures for commercial aircraft like this Boeing 737. I know emergency protocols. I know aircraft systems. And I know I can help your first officer. The cabin erupted again. Some passengers scoffed. Others looked frightened that this might actually be their best option. A few looked at Maya with dawning respect. This is insane, a businessman shouted. We're supposed to trust our lives to a kid? What kind of airline is this? She's just a child, another woman cried. How can she possibly know what she's talking about? But Sarah was looking into Maya's eyes. She saw something there she hadn't noticed before. Competence. Knowledge. Confidence. She made a split-second decision. Come with me, she said. Maya followed Sarah toward the cockpit. As they passed rows of seats, passengers reached out. Some tried to stop them. Others wanted reassurance. You can't be serious. This is crazy. What are her qualifications? The questions and protests followed them forward. They reached the cockpit. Martinez looked up as they entered, her face showing the strain of managing everything alone. She saw Sarah and a teenage girl. Confusion flashed across her face. This is Maya, Sarah said quickly. She says she can help. She says she knows how to fly. Martinez's first reaction was disbelief. What? No, I don't have time for this. I need someone with actual flight experience, not, she stopped herself, but the implication hung in the air. Maya stepped forward. Her voice was calm and professional. First Officer Martinez. My name is Maya Chen, daughter of Commander David Chen, United States Navy, retired. I have over 700 hours on commercial flight simulators, including full procedure training on Boeing 737 platforms. I can read instruments. I understand flight systems and I know emergency protocols. I'm not offering to fly the aircraft. I'm offering to be your co-pilot, to handle secondary tasks so you can focus on flying. Let me help you. Martinez stared at her. Her mind was reeling. Every instinct said this was crazy. She was a child. But her hands were shaking. She was overwhelmed. And she desperately needed help. You know what these instruments mean? She asked, gesturing at the panel. Airspeed indicator, attitude indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, heading indicator, turn coordinator, Maya said quickly, pointing to each one in sequence. You're at 35,000 feet. Airspeed 490 knots. Heading 075 degrees. You're on autopilot currently, which is good. Engine parameters are normal. Fuel is approximately 65%. Martinez's mouth fell open. She was right about everything. You see that switch? Maya pointed. That's your hydraulic system selector. That panel shows electrical systems. If you need me to adjust radio frequencies or read back checklists, I can do that. If you need someone to monitor instruments while you handle the approach, I can do that. Please let me help. Maya nodded, suddenly feeling very young again. The adrenaline was fading and exhaustion was setting in. "You're welcome, First Officer Martinez. Tell Captain Miller I hope he recovers quickly." Passengers began leaving the plane. Many of them looked at Maya with new eyes. Some approached to thank her. Others simply stared, trying to process what they had witnessed. Jennifer from seat 9B approached, her face flushed with embarrassment. I'm sorry," she said to Maya. "I underestimated you. Thank you for what you did." "It's okay," Maya said graciously. "A lot of people underestimate me. I'm used to it." Mr. Peterson shook her hand firmly. "Your father would be very proud of you, young lady." Tears came to Maya's eyes at the mention of her father. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot." As Maya finally made her way off the aircraft, she was met by airline officials, airport security, and many people with questions. The story was already spreading: the teenage girl who helped land a plane, the unaccompanied minor who turned out to be anything but ordinary. Later that evening, after giving statements and interviews, Maya finally reached her grandmother's house in Boston. She collapsed on the couch, emotionally and physically exhausted. Her mother called, having heard the news. "Maya, baby, are you okay? I can't believe what happened. I had no idea you knew so much about flying." "Dad taught me," Maya said softly. "I kept studying after he died. I wanted to make him proud." "Oh, sweetheart." Her mother's voice broke. "He would be so proud. I'm so proud. You saved all those people." "First Officer Martinez saved them," Maya insisted. "I just helped her stay focused. That's what Dad would have wanted." Over the next days and weeks, the story spread. Maya became a brief media sensation, the young girl who helped land a plane at 35,000 feet. Some people praised her. Others criticized the situation, arguing a child should never have been put in that position. Aviation experts debated the protocols and procedures. Captain Miller recovered, though he would never fly again. He sent Maya a letter thanking her and telling her that her father would have burst with pride. Martinez stayed in touch, sending her updates and encouragement, telling her that when she was old enough, she would make an incredible pilot. But for Maya, the most important moment came weeks later when she was back home, sitting at her father's old desk with his aviation manuals spread around her. She was studying for her private pilot's license, which she would be eligible for in a few years. She traced her fingers over his handwriting in the margins of his books, his notes and annotations. "I did it, Dad," she whispered to the empty room. "I listened to the plane just like you taught me. I stayed calm. I used what you gave me. And it mattered. It really mattered." Outside, the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere above, aircraft traced white lines across the sky, carrying people to their destinations. Pilots at the controls, fulfilling the ancient human dream of flight. And in that room, a young girl who the world had underestimated continued to study, continued to prepare, continued to honor her father's legacy. She had learned that day at 35,000 feet that expertise has nothing to do with age or appearance. It has everything to do with preparation, knowledge, and the courage to stand up and say, "I can help." 6 months after the emergency landing, Maya received a special invitation. The Federal Aviation Administration invited her to speak at the annual Aviation Safety Conference in Washington, D.C. Standing on that stage in front of hundreds of pilots, aviation officials, and industry leaders, Maya told her story. She talked about her father's training, about the hours spent in simulators, about keeping that knowledge hidden because she didn't think anyone would take a teenage girl seriously. "I was invisible until the moment I became useful," she told the audience, her voice steady and clear. "People saw my age and they made decisions about what I could and couldn't know. That almost cost them their lives." If First Officer Martinez hadn't been willing to look past what she expected to see, if she hadn't been willing to accept help from an unexpected source, the outcome might have been very different. The audience was silent, absorbing her words. She continued, "My father used to tell me that the sky doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your background, your appearance, or anyone's expectations. The sky only cares about one thing: do you have the knowledge and skill to be there? That's the standard we should all hold ourselves to. Not assumptions, not stereotypes, just capability." After her speech, dozens of people approached her. Airline captains shook her hand with respect. Young aspiring pilots, especially young women, thanked her for showing them what was possible. Aviation school directors offered her scholarships for when she was ready to pursue her commercial pilot's license. But the most meaningful moment came when an older pilot approached. "My name is Captain James Morrison," he said, his eyes warm. "I was Jennifer's husband. She told me everything about that flight. She called me that night, crying about how wrong she had been about you. She said you taught her something important about judging people. She wanted me to thank you." Maya smiled gently. "Please tell her thank you for being willing to learn. That's what matters most." Captain Morrison nodded. "I'm on the board of the Aviation Scholarship Committee. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship for flight training when you turn 16. Your father's legacy deserves to continue, and so does yours." Tears came to Maya's eyes. "He would love that," she whispered. "Thank you." 2 years later, on her 16th birthday, Maya walked onto the tarmac at a local flight school. Today was the day she would take her first actual flight lesson in a real aircraft, not a simulator. Her instructor, a woman named Captain Rachel Foster, greeted her with a warm smile and a firm handshake. "Ready to touch the real sky?" Captain Foster asked. Maya looked up at the small training aircraft, its white wings gleaming in the sunlight. She thought of her father, of Flight 428, of all the people who had doubted her and all the people who had believed. She thought of the young girls who had written her letters saying she inspired them to pursue their dreams despite what others said. "Yes," she said with quiet confidence. "I'm ready." As they climbed into the cockpit, Captain Foster went through the pre-flight checks. But then she did something unexpected. She turned to Maya and said, "You know what? You've probably logged more simulator hours than some of my other students will in their entire training. You've been in a real emergency situation. You've proven yourself under pressure that would break most people. So today, from the very beginning, I'm treating you like the pilot you already are. Not a child. Not a student who needs things simplified. A fellow aviator. Deal?" Maya's smile could light up the sky. "Deal." They taxied to the runway. As the little plane accelerated down the pavement, Maya felt her father's presence as clearly as if he were sitting beside her. She could almost hear his voice. "Feel that, baby? That's the plane talking to you." The aircraft lifted off. For the first time in her life, Maya was truly flying. Not in a simulator, not as an emergency assistant, but as a pilot, hands on the controls, commanding her craft through the air with the skill and confidence her father had given her. Below, the world spread out, roads like ribbons, houses like toys, people going about their lives, unaware that above them, a young girl who had once been invisible was soaring through the clouds, writing her own story across the sky. She banked the aircraft gently, feeling the responsive controls, the power of flight at her fingertips. This was who she was. This was who she had always been. It just took 35,000 feet and a moment of crisis for the world to see it. But now they knew. And more importantly, she knew. She knew that her voice had power, her knowledge had value, and her dreams had wings. As she leveled out at altitude, the sun breaking through the clouds in golden rays, Maya Chen smiled and whispered into the wind. "Thanks, Dad. I'm flying now. Really flying. And I'm never coming down." The sky welcomed her home. Maya's story reminds us that extraordinary people often come in unexpected packages. Knowledge has no age limit. Courage means standing up even when others doubt you. And sometimes the person who looks least likely to help is exactly the person you need. The girl in seat 9C proved that preparation, knowledge, and courage can overcome any stereotype. She honored her father's legacy and showed the world what she was capable of. The sky doesn't judge. It only asks, do you have the skill to be here? Maya Chen answered that question at 35,000 feet, and she continues to answer it every day.